Confessions of an Introvert, Chapter 1. A quote from C.G. Jung. It is important to have a secret, a premonition of things unknown. It fills life with something impersonal, a numinosum. A man who has never experienced that misses something important. He must sense that he lives in a world which is in some respects mysterious, that things happen and can be experienced which remain inexplicable, that not everything which happens can be anticipated. The unexpected and the incredible belong in this world. Only then is life whole. When I was 4 years old, I saw an amazing thing from my bedroom window. I found the phenomenon inexplicable. Almost every Friday night, a glowing light appeared in the field behind our house. Standing on my bed, I could see the mysterious glow. It flared against the night sky to reveal a multitude of people. Now and then I could hear beautiful music, and sometimes the roar of the crowd would raise me from my bed. I could not understand it. After several such occurrences, I decided to see this thing for myself. The allure, I realize now, had the nature of a compulsion. The fascination was overpowering, and nothing could have stopped me from following through on my determination. Every obstacle would have to be overcome, which at 4 years old had to do with figuring out how to put shoes on by myself and sneaking out of the house. It never dawned on me to ask someone about the light. This was to be my secret. Fortunately, a new pair of cowboy boots had for the first time given me shoes that did not require me to learn how to tie shoelaces. I also knew from observation that my parents would be watching television in the living room, providing just enough cover to make my way down the hall, through the kitchen, and to the back door. Still in my pajamas, I carried the boots as well as my teddy bear. For moral support, I suppose. Out the door and into the garage, where I put on the boots and began my adventure. Once across the field, the first obstacle was a gate. A man stood at a gate taking tickets. Shamelessly, I put my head down and passed right by him. There was a narrow walk between the bleachers and a small fence, and I remember feeling a bit crushed in the press of people. So I climbed the bleachers on steps that were too large for my legs. Feeling free of the others, I settled into an open bench overlooking the field from a higher point of view that gave me a clear field of vision to observe the wonderful sight. A football game developed in vibrant colors. A band played loud music with deafening drums and cymbal crashes. Presently, my father appeared below me, hands over his eyes as he searched for me down among the crowd. I knew I had done something wrong, and I knew that he would find me. Perhaps I wanted to be found. When he came up the stairs, he sat beside me without saying a word. We sat a while together, both enjoying the game. There was no hurry. I believe he understood that moment enough to join me in my insatiable curiosity. After a sufficient time, he took my hand and we wandered home. It was the only time he used the belt on me, even though by that time I felt I had earned the punishment. He was so upset in disciplining me, I think I didn't have the heart any longer to run away. My escapades needed to come to an end. Other adventures awaited. Such is the life of an introvert. The inner world is, in reality, the only constant in our lives. We emerge from the inner world of childhood, move into outer life, and then return to the inner world again in old age. Our motivations linger below the surface, and even the people who love us best are often mystified by the things we introverts do. I would want them to know this does not mean we do not love them. It only means that there are things too deep to share. D.W. Winnicott, the pediatrician turned psychoanalyst, wrote of the need to create the capacity to be alone. In children, there is the fear of being alone, which is the fear of abandonment. Then sometimes children express the wish to be alone, which can be interpreted as withdrawal. More important is the ability to be alone, like the child lost in play. Winnicott considered this to be a sign of maturity in emotional development. Part 2. The story of eloping to the football field would be an example of what psychoanalysts call a screen story. I hear them all the time, and that is fine. You must allow the patients their defenses because they will tell you the real story, the foundational story, when they can trust you and, more importantly, trust themselves to bear it. A screen story is a substitute for the truth, which seems, on the surface of it, to answer the question. It can be quite convincing and certainly is an important story about someone's life. You would hardly know that it is a truth passing for another kind of truth altogether, a way of saying something which is felt too difficult to say. It is a way of testing the analyst's emotional attunement. If the analyst's empathy fails upon hearing the screen story, trust may never be regained. The story is symbolic of a hidden truth. The secret is revealed, but still protected. The selection of such a story is mostly unconscious. I wouldn't want you to get the wrong idea. In general, my patients do not set out to lie to me. They do not know why they are sharing what they are sharing. Saying something out loud to another human being for the first time after years and years of silence is a daunting task. My story of the 4-year-old speaks of a mystery glowing in the night, hearing music, a sense of something clandestine, coming to a gate, a private adventure, and finishes with the knowledge that I had done something I knew I was not supposed to do. All of this is a connection to the secret story, something else that happened, which shared these same attributes. For nearly 50 years, I have not been able to talk about it. I have a secret, and the secret has guided my life. As a psychoanalyst, I can only marvel at the power of all those things we keep to ourselves. That power, for better or worse, drives our most intense motivations. In the tension between confession and withholding, we make our way. Sometimes the secret feels too shameful to share. Sometimes we are guarding something too sacred to share. As a person with a secret, I have become a keeper of secrets. In some deeply unconscious way, I was driven to become an evaluator of things never spoken out loud, so that by knowing what is going on under the surface of people's lives, I could secretly assess whether my own inner life is too strange to share. I am at least enough of a psychoanalyst to know that analysts enter the profession with the secret hope of understanding their own life. There's nothing particularly unhealthy about that as long as you know it about yourself. My secret is that I have no fear of death because I have been to the gate between life and death, and I have known since that day what happens when we die. I know with the conviction of my own experience that there is nothing to fear. Fear gets in the way of so much living. I know that my near-death experience was the single most interesting experience of my life. And when I travel there once more, it will be like coming home. What happened was this. Just after Christmas in 1971, I went to a friend's house to hang out with 4 other teenagers. At age 15, we were no different than any other 15-year-olds on the planet. Drugs and alcohol were not involved. I was never that kind of kid. Staying up late and wearing bell-bottoms were the most serious rebellions I could tolerate. So we listened to music, the first album of Jesus Christ Superstar as I remember. About 2 in the morning, 3 of the others had retired to the living room with all the lights off, and when the album finished, my friend and I joined them. The Christmas tree was on display, and when I had settled in a recliner, someone said that he felt a presence in the room. Then one of the kids said, "Look at the tree." Turning my head, I saw that the tree had been lit up, glowing in the dark. No one had plugged in the tree. My own experience began at that moment. Others said they had other experiences. For me, the lights on the Christmas tree became the stars. and I was pulled into the stars as if I were in deep space at the center of the universe. I heard music, more beautiful than any music I had ever heard before, a profound and moving singing from many voices. I was entranced and lost all track of time. During that experience, I was also aware of a strange sensation which I had never felt before. I can only describe it as a balloon inflating underneath my skin throughout my whole body. This was not painful, but it felt quite weird and perplexing. It felt like a rubbery substance that would push straight out of my body. In particular, the push was most pronounced in my mouth, and I became aware that my mouth was widening, almost like a gag, trying to open so that this substance could leave. My body tensed over its entire length as if frozen or paralyzed. Then I saw a square corridor or tunnel. The deeper into the tunnel I walked, the more everything around me disappeared. I felt an utter separation from my body. At the end of the tunnel, I came upon a massive gate. The slats of the gate were so close together I could not see what might lie on the other side, other than a dull red-orange glow. Without thinking about it, I knew that if I were to pass through the gate, I would die. The thought struck me as quite matter of fact. It did not distress me. I heard the voice. The first time in my experience I had any sense of another presence. The voice told me that I had a choice. I could continue or I could return. Either begin the task now or deny it forever. To accept the task meant that whatever kind of life I lived after the decision would be a life with its only purpose to fulfill the task. To deny it meant death, then and there, so that another might pick up the task. The voice said that if I chose to return, then you will live for me. The choice was not self-evident. I considered going on past the gate and debated with myself whether or not I really had any desire to return. The voice waited. I have no memory of how I made such a choice, but as soon as the thought entered my mind that I would return, that I accepted the conditions set by the voice, I found myself back in the lounge chair with my friends gathered around me and calling me to come back. The experience was over. Part 3. I did not know I had had a near-death experience. Dr. Raymond Moody's book, which popularized the term, was not published until 1975. All of those stories about entering a tunnel, seeing the light, and returning were unknown to me. Like most experiencers, I can only say with absolute certainty that this happened to me as surely as I remember my wedding day and the births of my children. I know that I was conscious through the entire experience, aware of what was going on in exactly the same way I am aware of this moment. I also know, and this is important, that I was myself in that experience, the same personality, ego consciousness that I am today. I felt, of course, that I could ask no one about such a strange experience. I could trust no one with my story, even my friends. The details filled me with a sense of embarrassment, particularly the conversation about taking up the task, something which seems so important and at the very same time so self-important. It was wrong to say such a thing. It was wrong to even think such a thing. Above all, if this aspect is not obvious yet, I had no idea what such a task for my life could possibly be. There was a sense that I had done something I should not have done, gone somewhere I should not have gone. The experience, I realize now, was transgressive in every sense of the word, violating a boundary, breaking a taboo, entering holy space in an unclean manner. On the surface of it, reading my account word for word, written only 5 years after the event, This was not the case. The voice had never said I had done something wrong. Making the experience a secret was all my own doing, emerging out of my own emotional reaction to it. I was too immature to feel otherwise. So, what I had seen, what I had been told, became a secret. Protected, cherished, inwardly fascinating, but outwardly forbidden. It had the nature of a psychological lacuna, as analysts name it, which is to say, the experience became an island cut off from the mainland of my personality. And that split from the first night was an open wound separating my outer life from my inner life. I had been cut in half, and although I could not have known it at the time, the work of putting myself back together was to become a life's work. At 15 years old, I had no context for understanding what had happened to me, only some dim awareness that it was possible to discover the knowledge which could answer my questions. What was this? Why did this happen? Was it a religious experience? Most importantly, now that this had happened, what did it mean? I needed to know what happened to me. What did it mean for my life to have had an NDE? As an introvert, I carried all of these thoughts in an inner world suddenly alive with overtones and whispers. Since I dare not share the experience, I would have to find the answers for myself. So I set out to find the answers. I needed to become that person with the relevant professional background and clinical experience to understand what my experience really meant. I had serious questions, and finding the answer was serious business. For all my earnestness, I could not have known that it would take me 25 years of relentless study in religion and psychology to put myself in the position to understand myself. And I should say, graduating as a psychoanalyst did not yet answer the questions. And by now, more than 20 years of work have gone by again. So the NDE was not the most remarkable thing. What happened that night was without a doubt the crucial experience in my life, never to be repeated. And yet, to my great surprise, in the years and decades which followed, the aftermath of the NDE has come to define me more than the original experience. The NDE was simply the question, and my life became the answer. I want to say that the NDE was my great white whale crashing into my life so long ago, but my story became the grim, stubborn determination verging on obsession to sail the seven seas in relentless pursuit of this great, large thing that I had once encountered. Ahab like, I was wounded by it in some deep psychic way, so that I could never let it go. And we all know how things turned out for Ahab in the end. At my age, of course, it is much too late to live another life. The only life I have ever known is a life of seeking. And I can tell you the delicious twist of fate that seeking earns you, insofar as you search and search your whole life long, you become a follower. You are led down the path by the object of your quest. There are clues along the way which guide you to places you would never have gone if left to your own devices. Following the voice of my experience became a vocation, and like all of those who are called by what they do not understand, I certainly did not choose for this happen to me. I have been faithful to my calling, and I have been unfaithful. At certain points in my life, I have tried to forget it ever happened. There are times I tried to let go of it and move on to other pursuits in life. I have been frustrated by the sacrifices I needed to make and other lives I might have lived. Friends and loved ones have noticed that some of the choices imposed by this experience seem illogical from the outside. But all along there has been an inner logic. a pattern governing how things have unfolded. There is a deeper path through life than simply our outer achievements. To fully live the inner life, you must follow a path that has no name. It has no footprint, no discernible trail, no direction that you would recognize or plan. Like the wake of a sailboat cutting through the water in an open sea, you can only see it stretching behind you. It is as if there is a destination for each individual life, a journey where the end is already known, but the traveler does not realize where the treasure may lie. All he has in his hands is an old nautical chart made by some unknown sailor plotting a course to a distant island he has never seen. The chart is testimony to the fact that while the traveler may not know for himself why his course takes him first to the south, around the peninsula, then tending eastward, there is a reason for such a circuitous route, discovered long ago by another seeker with the knowledge of such things. The traveler must trust the chart maker. It feels that way to me. Some would say this cannot possibly be true. Life, after all, unfolds from the decisions we make one at a time without any way of calculating the outcome in the decision tree branching 100 forks toward an exponential cloud of randomness. Others will tell you there is only the illusion of choice in your life. What choices you select make no difference. Where you go and what you do with your life is, in the end, meaningless. Although at times I have felt adrift in an angry sea, I am willing to be the experiment because the whole endeavor of seeking has never seemed meaningless to me. My experiment has been a life of inner compulsion embraced with eyes wide open in the pursuit of the truth of my own experience. I cannot rest until I have gone all the way down and through and arrive at the place such obstinate resolve renders. Perhaps it is no surprise that the truth turned out to be more elusive than I could have realized in the beginning. I had yet to discover that the only treasure I would find there would be my own subjective truth. And then you have to ask yourself about the validity of your own inner life and whether it is enough to answer for the life you have made of it. We shall see, I suppose, whether or not my single-mindedness has, like Ahab, descended into madness. For 20 years, I had the opportunity to sail with friends, mostly among the islands of Casco Bay, Maine, and sometimes further out to sea on longer passages. I remember what it was like to be a novice sailor, to not know anything at all. Back then, I did not know the difference between a jib and a jibe, to the great consternation and a lot of foul language from my skilled friends. I had yet to learn of the sea, of its moods, its power, and the respect it demands from those who sail in little boats over ocean depths they do not comprehend. Over time, I did learn enough to know that the lessons sailing teaches are the lessons of life. If you want to become a seeker, then you must become a sailor, because the mystery lies out there, away from known lands or what you think you know about life. To find the whale once more, you cannot cling to what other people tell you about what is safe and secure. I had to learn about the wind and my point of sail, broad reach, beam reach, close hauled. Whatever you are trying to accomplish in life, the wind is with you or the wind is against you. It does not mean you have to give up on your course. It only means you have to learn to trim your sails to the prevailing wind. All of this is on the outside. Down below, you have to recognize the strength of the current. Better to flow with the current than to fight it. I never really got the hang of feeling in my body how the current was dragging the boat. Only after many decades did I start to feel how the current was moving my life from underneath. Reading nautical charts was the hardest part for me. At first, all I saw were inexplicable symbols, but slowly I came to understand that they represented hazards, depth, and direction. From these signs, a sailor can plot his rum line, the correct magnetic compass heading for navigating to the next waypoint. In the days before GPS, all of this was done by hand, and to this day, it is still better to know how to do it yourself than depend on the technology, because technology fails, but human instinct prevails. In life, we only think we know where we are heading. In life, the waypoints are set before we are born. At least I learned enough to know where the journey leads. I have been led into myself. The journey leads to the center because all the old charts point to the center as they always have, because that is the pattern, that is the path of individuation. The journey is always the homeward journey. When you set sail for Ithaca, wish for the road to be long, full of adventures, full of knowledge. Ithaca has given you the beautiful journey. Without her, you would not have set out on the road. Nothing more does she have to give you. And if you find her poor, Ithaca has not deceived you. Wise as you have become with so much experience, you must have already understood what Ithacas mean. Poem by Constantine Cavafy.